Hello, welcome to the channel and thanks for joining me. Now I've got to be honest, today's video didn't really turn out quite how I anticipated it. Now if you want to skip ahead a couple of minutes to see how we got on, please do. But first I'd like to give a quick introduction by way of context. Now here at Designs by Arcadia we repair, restore, refurbish all kinds of furniture. Sometimes we paint it, sometimes we don't. And we do use a lot of Rust-Oleum paints. Now, of course, many other brands are available. We're not sponsored. I just mentioned that because on a recent advert, I noticed that Rust-Oleum on their furniture paint actually use some Nathan Squares furniture. Now, Nathan Squares is made by Parker Knoll, could be classed as mid-century modern, certainly 1970s or thereabouts. And we're very familiar with that particular furniture. In fact, I just had a quick count up around our stores and we've got no less than 28 pieces of Nathan Squares furniture in stock, either for sale or to be worked on as it stands. So we're very familiar with that particular type of unit. And they basically paint straight over onto the wood, and that's that. Now, the only reason I mention it is because a lot of people in the comments, although a lot of people liked the painted furniture, there were a lot of people saying, oh, it's mid-century modern furniture, it's becoming collectible, it's becoming valuable, you shouldn't paint it. And someone said, oh, congratulations, you've totally devalued the piece. Now, doesn't bother me either way. It wasn't my advert or my product or anything like that, and everybody's entitled to their own opinions. But we wouldn't necessarily paint, in fact I don't think we ever paint wood directly. We always prime it, because if you're going to the trouble of painting furniture, generally it's old, it's tired, the veneer may have been in a terrible state, it might have nicks, dings, scratches, all kinds of stuff. So if you're doing it properly, you're going to want to fill it, you're going to want to use maybe dolphin glaze or P38 or wood filler or knifing putty or anything like that. All of those leave different colours, different surface finishes, different textures. So if you're going to paint it, it's quite nice to actually put a primer on just to give a unified coating to be able to get equal absorption of the paint into the substrate. But that's by the by. I guess I'm coming at this because I found a piece of Nathan furniture that I had every intention of painting. It was a mess, it had dings and scrapes, and the upholstery on it was absolutely ruined and it was filthy. And I thought, do you know what? I'm actually going to paint this one. 9 times out of 10 I'll just restore it. And I thought, do you know what? I really will just paint this one. And I chose the paint for it, I chose the ironmongery, and it even had ill-fitting legs which I wanted to replace. I'll cover this in a video in a second, we'll crack on, I promise. But what I wanted to say really is I had everything lined up to paint it, and my view is if you want to paint furniture, it's your furniture, paint it. And we're not talking about 50,000-60,000 pounds vintage or collectible antique furniture. We're only talking of probably a couple of £100 at most in any event, and for every piece that's painted there will be another piece available somewhere else that isn't. And I kind of save painting for if things really are in a really bad state, or they're just so tired and dated in their original decor that they just won't be used at all. They'll be unloved and left in the back of a cupboard or thrown away. So better to paint them and give them a new lease of life than not to use them at all. So anyway, found this piece of furniture. My intention was to paint it, put totally new ironmongery on it and everything else. Didn't quite go to plan. Let's see how we got on. So here's the piece in question then, a Nathan Squares telephone seat. Now this could be converted to a cocktail cupboard or a general reading seat, window seat, call it what you will. But you can see it's pretty grimy. The chap I bought it from had best intentions, but it didn't fit well in his house, so we basically left it to kind of sit aside in the back of his van of all places. So it's going to need a decent good clean at least. And you can also see though what he had done is put some hairpin legs on there, but they were about 10-inch legs, so you almost needed a ladder just to get up onto the seat, so not terribly comfortable or practical. Furthermore, he'd put a batten in there which didn't really fit properly, and the legs overhung as well, so it didn't look too pretty. And you can see the state of the seat as well. This was the original seat, but it really needed looking at and reupholstering. Fortunately, the actual frame of the seat was in good condition, and you can see the curved braces there as well. So if we were to convert this into a table, we'd need to put some straight braces in there, but we're going to keep it as a seat for today. So the first thing I want to turn my attention to is actually the seat. Now, we'd recently reupholstered a set of Nathan dining chairs, so new upholstery foam and fabric, and we needed a fairly specialist tool to be able to drive the staples into these wooden bases, and we'd borrowed one from a friend, so this was a perfect opportunity to do this one last seat cushion before we gave him that back. First thing you can see though is to carefully remove all of the staples for the fabric and the foam. So just watch your fingers on this, just using a staple remover. It's a bit of a manual process and you just have to be a little bit careful. This is probably the messiest and riskiest part of the whole project. And once the staples are out, it's time to remove the upholstery fabric and indeed the foam. Now, I have seen worse, but this is certainly not in the best of conditions, and in any event it'd be nice to replace it with something slightly more comfortable, more hygienic, and with fire eggs as well. So we'll just remove that, and now the time is to go ahead and remove each and every one of these staple remnants. It takes a little while, but as you can see, once they're all out, we're good to go and time to start reinstating. So for this, we've got some new foam, and the edges don't need a waterfall because they're a tight fit and we won't sit on the side of the actual seat unit anyway because it's encased. So we're just leaving a little bit of extra around the front to create a waterfall just under the knees. A tiny bit of spray adhesive, only as a temporary tacking measure just to hold everything in place whilst we get on and apply the fabric. So the fabric we have here was actually colour coded to the original paint I was going to apply to this unit. So we're just lining it up, getting the stripes nice and straight and attacking the fabric on and stretching as we go. If you'd like to see more on how we actually upholster the fabric seats and refoam them, then do let us know in the comments. I'm sure we can put a video together for you. But we're just closing it off now with some fabric just to seal off all of the loose edges and give a nice clean fresh bottom to the seat unit, and there it is, ready to go. And so with the seat unit upholstered, it's time to turn our attention to the main unit. We've just got some degreaser here. It's a nice day, so we're just going to spray this outside, work it in, and we'll get rid of any dust, but also grease, grime, waxes, furniture polish, anything like that that's been on here for quite some years. And yep, just a case of working it in and letting it set for a little minute and giving it a bit of a rinse off later. And this is where the project took a different turn. Although it's not perfect, it is actually much better condition than I originally thought, and decided to keep it as original as possible for now and see if we can actually sell it as it is. So we're not going to paint it today, but there is still work to do, so let's crack on. And with everything clean and dry, we've inverted the unit now, and it's time to remove the old legs so we can see what we're up against. Clearly we won't be reusing these ones, they are way too tall, and also the screw holes are in a slightly sketchy position. I want to put some reinforcing buttons in between. So here we've got some new legs, and these ones work really well, I always think, with Nathan Teak. They're beautiful gold units and much smaller. I think these ones were 4" compared to the 10" of the old ones. You can see the difference side by side just there. So these ones will be much more practical. But before we fit the legs, we need to find the best way to fix them there. And you can see that the holes don't really line up very well, and that's why the previous chap had them offset so that the edges were sticking out a little bit. But I think what we'll do is keep them flush with the outside. So to get around that, we'll put some reinforcing battens along the inner perimeter. The first thing we need to do though is remove the original batten that the previous owner had put in. So just a few screws will sort that out. So with the old batten removed, we can actually fit one that's cut to the correct length here, and that will certainly make for a much better fit. But first thing we need to do is to glue, drill and screw some reinforcing battens along the inside, effectively giving us a wider piece of timber to actually attach the foot plates to. So that's all 4 legs in position now, as flush and square as we can get them. The reinforcing pieces of timber as well on the inside, just to help carry the load and provide a better piece of timber for us to screw the actual legs into. So now that's all done, we can do some of the final touches. We've got some Gilboy's Rose Gold wax here. Now the idea with this is just to get rid of any of the worst of the scuffs and the discoloration there. I'm not going to actually wax the entire unit on this occasion. Normally I would, but because I'm still not sure whether or not I'm going to paint it, I don't want to have to spend half a day getting all this wax back off to paint it at another date. First thing I want to do is see if I can actually sell it as it is, and so to that end we're just going to get rid of the worst marks by using this 4-0 grade wire wool and some Gilboy's Rose Gold wax. Do check out our other video on the wax, by the way. It's lovely stuff. It smells fantastic too. And while we're on the subject of smelling fantastic, we've got some salve here which will just nourish the inside of the drawer and just give it that beautiful satin sheen. And all we need to do for that is to apply this with a brush, let it soak in, and you'll be able to see a lovely nourished and satin gloss finish to the bottom of the drawer. And by the time we've salved the drawer, it's now time to go back and buff the wax that we'd applied earlier on. And we are pretty much there. All that remains, of course, now is to screw the seat unit back in and sit back and enjoy the results. So there we have it then, folks, the piece of furniture that was destined to be painted and never was. It just goes to show that with a deep clean and a little bit of a polish and some TLC, a lot of items that are perhaps destined for the bin or destined to be totally repurposed or cut about or, you know, repainted might just be okay. So until you get into it, you never quite know what you're going to find. And I think today we've found that nice sort of sensitive balance between restoration and practicality and usefulness, so hopefully it will be able to be enjoyed again. Now, we staged it briefly as like a reading table. It could be a little cocktail or drinking table, it could be a telephone table still, it could be anything really that you wanted it to be. But in any event, it will be something. It's clean, it's tidy, it's got a brand new fresh seat, it's a much more sensible height now. And do you know what? If it doesn't sell, we can always paint it anyway, give it another go, see what happens with it. So stay tuned. Thanks very much indeed for watching. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell for updates, and check out some of our other videos. Now, we're a fairly new channel, a very new channel in fact, so we don't have a massive back catalogue as yet, but we've got lots to come. So as I say, please subscribe. Thank you very much indeed for watching. We'll see you soon. All the best. Take care for now. Bye bye.